Hello everyone, tonight we set sail into one of the most haunting maritime mysteries in history. A story of a ship found drifting silently in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, its cargo untouched, its structure intact, but with no trace of the crew that once manned it. This is the enigma of the Mary Celeste, a ghost ship whose fate has baffled sailors, historians, and mystery seekers for over a century. What happened to the men and women aboard her? Why did they vanish without leaving a single clue behind? And why does the Mary Celeste remain the most famous sea mystery ever recorded? Let's dive into the story and see if we can unravel the truth behind the vanishing crew of the Mary Celeste. The story begins in the late 1800s, during an era when the oceans were the highways of the world. Ships carried goods, people, and stories across continents. Among them was the Mary Celeste, a two-masted brigantine built in Nova Scotia in 1861. Originally named the Amazon, she had a troubled start, plagued with bad luck almost from the beginning. She collided with other ships, ran aground more than once, and even saw the death of her first captain. Some sailors whispered she was cursed, a vessel destined for misfortune. Despite her unlucky reputation, the Mary Celeste was eventually purchased and renamed. In 1872, under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs, she set sail from New York on a voyage to Genoa, Italy. Aboard were Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7 experienced sailors. They carried a cargo of nearly 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. By all accounts, the crew was skilled, the captain was respected, and the ship was seaworthy. Nothing suggested the tragedy that was to come. On December 4, 1872, another ship, the Dei Gratia, a British brigantine, spotted the Mary Celeste drifting aimlessly about 400 miles east of the Azores. At first, they assumed she was sailing normally. But as they approached, something felt off. The ship moved strangely, as though no one was at the helm. When a boarding party climbed aboard, they were met with an eerie silence. The Mary Celeste was empty. What they found only deepened the mystery. The cargo hold was mostly intact, though some barrels had leaked. The crew's personal belongings were still there. Clothes neatly folded, valuable items untouched. The ship's papers and navigation instruments were missing, but not much else. There were no signs of violence, no blood, no struggle. Food supplies were plentiful. The lifeboat, however, was gone. It seemed as though the crew had abandoned ship in an orderly fashion. But why? The condition of the ship gave few clues. The sails were partly set, though some were damaged. The rigging was worn but functional. The hull was in decent shape, though it had taken on some water. Not enough to sink, but enough to be concerning. The galley was stocked, the cabin was dry, and even the captain's logbook was intact up to 10 days before the discovery. The last entry described nothing unusual. It was as if the crew had simply vanished into thin air. Speculation ran wild. Some believed pirates had attacked, but nothing was stolen. Others suggested mutiny, but there was no evidence of conflict. Natural disasters were considered. Perhaps a waterspout, a sudden storm, or an undersea earthquake had terrified the crew into abandoning ship. Another theory suggested the alcohol cargo may have leaked fumes, making the crew fear an explosion. In panic, they might have taken to the lifeboat, only to be lost at sea. But none of these explanations fully fit the facts. If the crew abandoned ship temporarily, why didn't they return? If they feared an explosion, why leave their belongings? If pirates struck, why leave valuables untouched? The mystery only deepened as investigators examined the ship. Newspapers of the time seized the story, painting the Mary Celeste as a ghost ship cursed by fate. Tales spread that the crew had been abducted by sea monsters, swallowed by a giant squid, or even taken by supernatural forces. Some whispered of a phantom presence aboard, or a curse that had followed the ship since her unlucky launch. The mystery captured the imagination of the public, and the legend of the Mary Celeste was born. For Captain Briggs and his family, their disappearance was especially tragic. Briggs was known as a devout, disciplined man with no reason to abandon his command. His wife Sarah was described as a loving mother, and little Sophia had her whole life ahead of her. The crew, too, were experienced sailors with families waiting at home. None of them were ever seen again. No trace of the lifeboat, no bodies, no message in a bottle, nothing. The case was brought before a British Admiralty court, which tried to determine what had happened. After weeks of testimony and investigation, the court could only conclude that the crew had abandoned ship for reasons unknown. The official report did little to settle the public's curiosity. Instead, it left the mystery wide open, fueling speculation for generations. As the years passed, theories grew stranger. Some suggested that Captain Briggs had gone mad and killed everyone before vanishing himself. Others claimed insurance fraud, though no real evidence supported it. Conspiracy theories linked the disappearance to secret government experiments, alien abductions, and paranormal forces. Writers like Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, even penned fictionalized accounts that added new twists to the legend, cementing the Mary Celeste in popular culture. But despite all the speculation, the truth remains elusive. The Mary Celeste was salvaged and sailed again under new ownership, but she never escaped her haunted reputation. She eventually met her end years later when she ran aground off Haiti and was deliberately wrecked in a failed insurance scam. Yet by then, her place in history as the world's most famous ghost ship was secure. When the Dei Gratia crew boarded the Mary Celeste that fateful day in December 1872, they couldn't have imagined that their discovery would become one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history. We've seen the eerie details of what they found: the abandoned ship, the missing lifeboat, the untouched cargo, and we've considered the confusion it caused. Now let's go deeper into the possible explanations, from the scientific to the supernatural, and see if we can find the truth behind the vanishing crew of the Mary Celeste. One of the most practical theories points to the cargo of alcohol. Out of nearly 700 barrels, a handful were discovered empty or leaking. Some experts suggest that fumes from the alcohol may have seeped through the hold, filling the air with an invisible threat. If Captain Briggs feared an explosion, he might have ordered everyone onto the lifeboat temporarily until the danger passed. But here's the problem. If this was the case, why didn't they return? The Mary Celeste was still afloat and in good condition. Could the lifeboat have been accidentally cut adrift, leaving the crew stranded at sea as the ship drifted on without them? It's a haunting thought, but one that could explain the mystery without invoking the supernatural. Another theory involves weather. The Atlantic can be a dangerous place, and sudden storms or waterspout, essentially tornadoes on the sea, and appear without warning. If a violent waterspout struck, the crew may have believed the ship was about to capsize. In fear, they could have abandoned ship, only to be lost in rough seas. But again, the Mary Celeste was found in seaworthy condition, making this explanation less convincing. Some have suggested piracy. The oceans of the 19th century were no strangers to raiders and thieves, yet the Mary Celeste's valuable cargo and personal items were untouched. Would pirates really leave behind everything of value? Unlikely. Then there's the possibility of mutiny. Could the crew have turned against Captain Briggs, taken the lifeboat, and left him and his family to die? But if so, where did the crew go? No lifeboat was ever found, and no one who served on the voyage was ever seen again. Mutiny seems improbable given Briggs' reputation as a fair and respected captain. One of the strangest theories involves an undersea earthquake or volcanic eruption. Some speculate that a sudden seismic event caused violent waves and strange phenomena, frightening the crew into abandoning ship. Others claim that bubbling gases could have made the ocean surface unstable, leading the crew to believe the ship was sinking. While intriguing, there is no evidence of such an event at the time the Mary Celeste was found. And then, of course, there are the supernatural theories. Some say the ship was cursed from the beginning. After all, she had a history of bad luck, collisions, and accidents before the fateful voyage. Sailors are notoriously superstitious, and whispers of a cursed vessel may have grown into legends after her mysterious abandonment. Other explanations drift into the bizarre alien abduction, sea monsters, or even time slips where the crew vanished into another dimension. While these ideas capture the imagination, they lack evidence, yet they remind us of how deeply this mystery has embedded itself into our culture. Even Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, couldn't resist the tale. In 1884, he wrote a fictionalized story about the Mary Celeste, renaming her the Mary Celeste. His tale involved murder and mutiny, and though it was meant as fiction, many readers believed it was fact. From then on, the ship became famous not just as a real-life mystery, but as a legend of the sea. Let's not forget the human side of this tragedy. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their young daughter Sophia were a family embarking on what should have been a routine journey. The crew were men with families of their own, men who trusted Briggs and their ship. Their disappearance left behind widows, children, and loved ones who never received closure. To this day, no trace of them has ever been found. They simply vanished, leaving behind only questions. The Mary Celeste herself sailed again under different captains, but she never escaped her haunted reputation. Sailors were reluctant to serve aboard her, whispering of bad luck and ghosts. In 1885, she met her final fate when she was deliberately run aground off the coast of Haiti in an insurance scam. Her wreck still lies beneath the waves, a silent reminder of her mysterious past. So what really happened? The most accepted theory today is that Captain Briggs, cautious and protective, believed the ship was in danger, either from alcohol fumes, shifting cargo, or water in the hold. He likely ordered the crew into the lifeboat, intending to stay nearby until it was safe to return. But something went wrong. Perhaps the lifeboat's tow line snapped, or rough seas separated them from the ship. Alone in a small boat on the vast Atlantic, they stood little chance of survival. The Mary Celeste drifted on, silent and empty, until the day Gracia found her. This explanation fits the facts, but it leaves a hollow ache in the heart. There's no romance, no grand twist, just a tragic mistake at sea. Yet sometimes the simplest answers are the truest. Still, the Mary Celeste remains a ghost ship in our imagination. The image of her drifting silently across the ocean, sails loose, wheel unmanned, cabin untouched, is one of the most haunting pictures in maritime history. It speaks to our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, of vanishing without a trace, of being lost forever in the vast, indifferent sea. Perhaps that is why the story endures, because the Mary Celeste is not just a mystery about a missing crew. It is a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly order can dissolve into chaos, and how even in our modern world, there are secrets the ocean refuses to give up. And so the Mary Celeste sails on, not in reality, but in legend. Her empty decks echo with the footsteps of the vanished crew. Her sails whisper with the voices of the lost. A ship forever adrift in the sea of mystery.